Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Off the Bench Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. Want to welcome you in on Verde Valley TV or KVNA FM 104.7 or AM 600. We're happy to have you along with us, and this is going to be a very exciting show. This is going to be your new home for everything 4A Grand Canyon region, from football to baseball, baseball to soccer, soccer to golf, golf to wrestling. Everything in between will be covered right here on Off the Bench. We've got a great show for you today. We'll get a chance to sit down with AIA Executive Director David Hines to speak about some of the new guidelines the AIA has for the fall sports season. Then we'll get a chance to talk with Mohave girls volleyball head coach Zdenko Radic, who's got a great story about how he made his way to the high school. You're definitely going to want to stick around for that. And finally, we'll get to sit down with athletic director for Prescott High School, Missy Townsend, where she will talk about the fall season and what it's going to look like over there in Prescott. Like I mentioned, this is going to be a very, very fun show, a great show, very informative. We're covering everything for a Grand Canyon region. And of course, football season is kicking off here in Yavapai, Coconino, Mohave. There's a bunch of different counties that make up the wonderful 4A Grand Canyon region, and football is finally kicking off. We're very excited. There are some changes that I feel are very important to inform you about if you don't already know. First and foremost, the big question is, are schools going to be allowing fans in the stands? And the answer to that question is yes, but also no. My biggest advice to you would be, if you are unsure, contact the school you're going to. Whether you're traveling on the road to another school or it's even the school your kid attends, definitely contact the school and see what the protocol on allowing fans in the stands is going to be. As of this moment, as of the recording of this show, there are only a handful of schools that are currently allowing fans in the stands. The first one is Lee Williams. Lee Williams will be allowing only home fans into the stands. They will not be allowing away fans. Prescott and Mingus High School will be allowing home and away fans, but the players for those respected high schools will be given two sort of graduation tickets. They'll be given 2 tickets to give to family members, friends, loved ones, whoever they want to have at that game on Friday night. And Bradshaw, as far as I know, Bradshaw Mountain High School is the only school that is currently not allowing fans into their sporting events. Again, this might change throughout the year. So my best advice for you is to, again, contact the schools that you're going to and make sure and check what their protocol is before you even decide to drive anywhere. Next, masks will be worn. Every player, personnel, media personnel as myself, staff, fans will have to wear a mask when they enter the school, of course, assuming that that school allows fans in the stands and also, everybody else. So masks are going to be a very, very prominent thing this year. And we cover a lot more in our interview coming up here with David Hines, the executive director for the AIA. He breaks down the metric that the AIA uses to see if a team is eligible. And also one of the bigger questions that I had, which was what happens if a player gets COVID? All of that is covered in that interview coming up at the other side of this break. But before we go to break, I just want to say for Marauders fans, on VerdeValleyTV.com and MyRadioPlace.com, we are running I almost said contest. It is not a contest. We are running a voting poll for the all-decade team at Mingus Union High School. So visit VerdeValleyTV.com or MyRadioPlace.com if you're a Marauders fan, and go vote from 2010 to 2009. Your favorite category this week is wide receiver. Vote for your favorite decade wide receiver, and the results will be announced during the broadcast when myself and Nick Yatsenko call the first football game coming up today. Very excited for that, and we're very excited to get this show going. And with that, I'm going to send it to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk with AIA Executive Director David Hines about AIA and the fall sports season. Off the Bench will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. I am joined by a very special guest now. He is the AIA Executive Director, Mr. David Hines. Sir, welcome onto the program.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm really appreciative that you had me on.
No problem. First and foremost, we all know that the fall sports season is currently going on. A lot to talk about with that. But first and foremost, just up and down the board so far in the state, how has the fall sports season been going?
Well, it's been slow. It's been a little delayed, but we are off and going and looking forward to adding football into the mix. So golf has been going well. Cross country and swimming and badminton and volleyball have been competing. So we're really enthused that we were able to get kids the opportunity to be able to compete after last spring. That was devastating for the kids and for us. So we're just really glad that we now have the opportunity to compete.
And of course, we're very happy that fall sports are continuing, and we're hoping that it'll go through with winter and also with spring sports. COVID-19 hit the state, hit the entire country, obviously the entire world. We're still dealing with COVID-19, but it seemed to me the AIA really made a good push to try to get fall sports going. As you mentioned, the spring sports season was cut short last year, and making sure, honestly, even at the beginning of the pandemic, we were kind of, maybe we'll be done with this by the fall. We won't really have to worry about it. It'll be more of a early spring, summer thing, and it'll be gone. Of course, that's not even nearly the case. So I'll ask this: how important was it to get that fall sports season up and going?
Well, it was hugely important. And I think the real challenge that we had that frustrated, I think, some parents is they kept saying we were pushing the can down the road a little bit, but we were really looking at the numbers. And
right.
Until we were actually able to start that week, our numbers weren't good enough to let us to go. But as soon as we got to that point, working with Sports Medicine Advisory or our governing board, again, starting with the least concerning and minimal risk sports to get those out of the way, beginning at the first sports out was really helpful. Obviously, football is the highest profile sport that has the highest risk. And right. The numbers, we were able to work with sports medicine and finally get those numbers where we needed to be. So we're just glad we got it off the ground. That's where it needed to start. We got to make sure that everybody's doing their part so that we can continue this. And then as we move into the winter, we've got to hit our numbers again moving forward in those sports.
And you talk about those numbers. As we know, Flagstaff Unified School District up here in northern Arizona had a very weird swing in their numbers where they had to cancel a couple early sporting events. I believe it was a volleyball game and possibly a golf tournament or something to that extent that had to get canceled. But as of now, they are up and running and are continuing their fall sports season. But what guidelines are the AIA following compared to, let's say, the state, or excuse me, not the state, the county that schools might be in, or even the district?
No, that's a great question, Ryan. And so the Sports Medicine Advisory really wanted us to, when we had certain numbers to hit for the particular sports, whether they were minimal risk or medium risk or the high risk, once we hit those numbers, the sports medicine did not want us to have to evaluate numbers week in and week out. They didn't want us to be able to start, then next week you shut down, the week after that you can go, the week after that shut down. So they put in a requirement or a protocol on what we do to either suspend or discontinue sports. So we have that protocol in. That is, if you have someone that comes down with a case or you have some close contacts, then we have a procedure that those particular individuals then we'll follow that protocol as opposed to shutting down an entire team. And
right.
so
Okay.
that was really, really helpful.
Okay. And that is, of course, you have to have that guideline in place when you do have a player that comes down with COVID, and it seems like you guys are more taking the player out of the equation, or possibly, maybe another player out of equation, because as we know, COVID-19 can spread, obviously, as opposed to removing the team. So what went into that decision to go more for taking the specific player out, as opposed to going, okay, much like we saw in the MLB, where we had the Marlins had an early breakout of COVID-19 and they canceled their games for a little while, and then including the Philadelphia Phillies, they could not play because they played against the Marlins. What went into the decision to make it more of a individual base as opposed to a team base?
Well, I think the big thing is, again, within the sport itself, obviously we don't have testing like
right.
some of the professional sports or some of the colleges. So the group that we're dealing with in high school is not one of the higher risk groups. So the sports medicine with the executive board made the determination that it would not make sense to quarantine 40 kids if
right.
there was one contact or 2 or 3 close contacts. If we could monitor those people, get tested, and go through the period of time that typically you would be an active or potentially get the virus, then if you can get past that period, then we can have a return to activity protocol.
And of course, that does also allow for the activity to continue, because if you have to shut down an entire team, you're shutting down essentially 2 weeks of games, especially when we're in football season now, but when we're in the middle of let's say fall sports season, or winter sports season, when you got multiple sports going on and you've got to shut down a team for a few games, especially like basketball where they play a few games a week. This makes it a little bit easier to help keep the ship going forward for the rest of fall sports season. As we talked about a little bit of the COVID-19 protocols, one of the protocols that had to be in place was a mask wearing protocol. We saw it when we broadcasted the Mingus Mohave game. We saw it during the football game. Players wearing masks on the sidelines, coaches as well. How have teams and players and coaches and school districts, how have they reacted, and how have they responded to the mask wearing protocol?
Ryan, honestly, for the most part, they've responded really well. Coaches are paying attention. I think our athletic directors have done a great job of setting some protocols in place to host events. Obviously, fans are at the discretion of the school district, or local health department, if you can have fans in place. Mm-hmm. I know that it's a challenge to keep a mask on. I get that. We are not an association like the NFL that's going to fine coaches $100,000 for not wearing their mask. However, we are asking them it is a modification to our rules. It is required for all of our coaches. It's required for kids that are not actually in play, and it is required for fans that do show up for games. And what we're really asking, they've done pretty well, but as we really are getting into the heart of the season, hopefully the weather is a little nicer, so it's not quite as hot wearing those, but really asking everybody to please do their part, because we want to be able to suit up next week. And It's almost on a daily and weekly thought process that, okay, you've done well, but we've got to continue to do well so these kids can play the next game and the next game. And honestly, it's very perilous, to tell you the truth. This could get shut down in a heartbeat. And if people aren't following the protocol, we could just, not that we're trying to shut anything down, but we've got to be careful of the safety of our kids, and everybody has to help those kids have the opportunity to play. So I don't want that to happen, but if people don't follow it, that's a consequence.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we're having a lot of those protocols put in place. Obviously, they had to be before you had anything go on. It's the same way up and down almost every industry here in the United States. But I can tell you what, when we first got into COVID-19 and we had baseball season cut short, I was standing around wondering what I was going to do with my life, what I was going to talk about. Sports are my entire life. I can talk about a few things, but I know the most about sports. But I'm really glad that we were able to get sports season kicked off. And it goes to the credit of the AIA working with the state and working with the counties and the districts to really make sure that we have a fall sports season. We're really glad that that got done.
Yes, sir. We're really excited, and we just want to keep continuing.
Yeah, and hopefully we will. Like you said, as long as we keep following the protocols and be very careful, we should have no issue having the rest of our fall sports season to go into winter and also the spring. Speaking of the winter season, how are we looking so far with winter sports? Are we getting close to, can we start potentially looking forward to the winter sports season, or are we just kind of, well, we'll get there when we get there?
Well, no. So all of our protocols are in place. Again, basketball and soccer are listed as minimal sport activities, so they have to hit those numbers. And then obviously wrestling is a high-risk sport, so they have to hit their numbers. If they hit their numbers, then they are good to go. So we really have winter sports scheduled to begin the first week in November, so about a month from now. So we're doing our coaches meetings here in the next couple weeks. And we're just going to continue to watch the numbers. Hopefully they continue where they are and they don't really go up much. And then we can, once we get that season started, then we have, again, our protocols in place that would cause something to be slowed or shut down.
And I don't know if anyone could hear or listen during the show, but Mr. Hines just knocked on some wood because he's really, really hoping that we do have the rest of this fall sports season. And you know what? I'll join you right as well.
There you go.
Hopefully we can keep the fall sports season going and continue it into winter and obviously into the spring. Are we going to see, obviously COVID-19 is continuing to change. We could have the rest of our sports season. We could have it shut down next week, which again, hopefully we won't. I'm knocking on every piece of wood I got. But are we going to see similar protocols in place for winter sports season if COVID-19 changes to a more positive route? Are we going to start to see some of the restrictions lifted, or I should say protocols lifted? Or is it just going to be, we're going to stick with this plan? This is the plan for now. Every sport is going to follow this plan.
Yeah, each of the sports has their own modifications. Obviously, wearing masks is going to be in all of them. Mm-hmm. It's just what it has to be done, because whether you like it, agree with it, can't stand wearing a mask, it has shown that it has kept the numbers down, and that's what's really important for us to continue to go. So we're going to have those pretty much in place until we get some type of approval from the state health department, county health departments, that we've kind of gotten past the major part of it. But I don't see that with the flu season coming, going away anytime soon, probably into the spring.
Right.
We thought maybe the heat would get rid of this. Obviously, we had the hottest summer on record, and that didn't help it at all. So we're gonna hope that people are doing the right things as they have been doing, and the numbers have been fairly steady on the low end, and we really appreciate that.
Well, like I said, the fact that we were able to get fall sports off the ground and go into any sort of protocol that we can, regardless if it's wearing a mask or whatever it may be, we're happy sports are back. And I know that sentiment is shared for every sports fan across the state, regardless if you're in Maricopa County or you're up here in Yavapai. But if you want to learn any more information or take a look at the guidelines yourself, you can go check out aiaonline.org. Again, aiaonline.org, or give them a call, 602-385-3810, to get any more information about the AIA, and their protocols and where we're looking forward for the rest of fall sports season. Mr. Hines, as usual, thank you very much for coming onto the program. We're happy to have you, and we'd love to talk to you again down the road.
Oh, I'd love to, Ryan. Thank you very much. You had great questions. And again, just getting the word out to everybody. We want this to be successful, and we want this, and I think we owe our kids the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, sir. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back off the bench, we'll be right back with Mohave Volleyball head coach Zdenko Radic. Great interview with him coming up on the way. Off the bench with Philip Catalfamo. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Off the Bench. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. I am joined now by the Mohave girls volleyball coach, Coach Zdenko Radic. Coach, welcome onto the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm really kind of happy, and like I said, I feel like a movie star being in your show. Thank you.
Well, we're really happy to have you, Coach. Your team has been the season has finally gotten underway. We know that COVID-19 has obviously caused a lot of issues for everybody across the board for every single sport, but we're happy to finally have volleyball going on. We got an opportunity to broadcast a game last week against Mingus, a very, very close loss for Mohave. But getting back to COVID, how did your team stay sharp during the COVID lockdowns, essentially?
I think that the word we're kind of looking here, it's more like to adjust. And it's not just for sports, but for anything else. Like when something like that happens, a situation like that, you try to adjust. And my team, my girls try their best to adjust to that. So we focused a lot on the individual skills. We focused a lot on the individual workouts. And to be honest with you, it's not easy to do that in Bullhead. It's, it's in summertime, it's really hot here. And they closed down most places. The school was closed down, all the fitness clubs. But we kind of tried the best we could do. And as soon as they opened the schools and we were allowed to do open gym, we got them going.
Did you encourage a lot of your players to do more of their skill stuff on their own as the COVID restrictions were going on?
Yes, I did. I have kind of like, 3 years that I coached, I have a lot of those individual workouts. And so I send them all those individual workouts that they actually can do home, like a lot of burpees and sprints and push-ups, sit-ups, squats, and things like that. So a lot of them worked out on their own.
And then, what you just mentioned it, once you finally got an opportunity, they opened the gymnasiums back up, you actually get an opportunity to coach with your team. What was it like that first day of practice back and getting an opportunity to actually be back with the girls and start practicing again for the upcoming season?
I can tell you that there were a lot of smiling faces, a lot of happy faces, starting from myself. I have a great group of kids that are being there around for so long, and that they do everything I ask them to do. So when they got that opportunity, actually, to come and start the season, when we heard that there will be a season, they were so happy, and I'm happy for them too, because they're teenagers and sitting 6-7 months home, kind of just sitting home, it's not far for them. So they want to go out there and they want to play and practice.
What has it been coaching like for you this season so far? You guys do have a couple games under your bench. under your belt. What do you like that you've seen so far?
What I like so far is that we are giving our best. So we talked about that we have I have a lot of seniors on this team, and I told them this is their season, that they need to do their best. As a coach, if you lose the game, you might not be happy with that, but if the girls are giving their best all the time, you really cannot complain. And that's the main idea when we teach them, right? If you give your best, if you give 100%, you got to be pleased with that. And so far they're doing it.
Yeah, no, and they really are. And like I mentioned, we got an opportunity to broadcast the Mingus Mohave game, the first game of the season for both teams, and you had some excellent performances from a lot of your girls up and down the floor. More specifically, Maya Radic, your daughter, she played phenomenal. We also had Oakley Heaton played very well up at the front. Are there any other players that you specifically want to talk about?
I think definitely Maya Radic, she's a really good all-around player. She can play outside, she can play back row. She's a great setter. Sometimes I use her as a setter depending who we play and what I need. But I can put her in any position she's going to play. Oakley is a great player. I would also mention Hannah Burgess, awesome middle hitter and great blocker. In back row, I have Jazzy Jimenez and Ashley Salzer. Those are my really good seniors, kids that have been around forever, and I know that they're going to give me 100% night in and night out.
Do you find it to be a little bit of an advantage to have so many upperclassmen on your team?
Well, I'm not complaining. Like I said, they're actually not just teammates, they're also best friends. So it really makes it my job easier. Those kids are great, and yes, it is advantage, and I'm going to try to take, that advantage.
Your coaching I noticed when we did the game that your team has a lot of heart, a team that does not give up. Even when they found themselves down against Mingus, they were able to cut into the deficit as much as possible. And when they were leading, they kept the score high and they kept the deficit short, and they were able to stay on top of the game most of the time. Just kind of speaking to more of the heart of your team, where does that passion stem from your players?
Those kids are very competitive. So it's not just sport, but anything they do, I have those kids are giving it 100%. And the way we do it here, and I don't know, maybe I should put myself there too. I'm a hardworking guy, and those kids know that I'm gonna give 100% for them. So they're gonna do that for me too. I'm there all the time for them. And that's what we're teaching them, but also it's inside those kids they have the drive to do the best they can, always to succeed.
Yeah. What about the lower classes? We did get an opportunity to see the freshman and JV teams play. You were, I think you were assistant coaching both of those teams for the freshmen and the JV. What do you like from your underclassmen?
So I think my JV it's a solid team, and freshmen, we have a lot of talented players. We do right here in Bullhead, we are struggling with that, finding coaches. But for this season, I have two great coaches. I have a JV coach who's a new teacher here at school. She's awesome, played college ball, and she helped out a little last year. So girls know her, and she's doing awesome with them. So there's a good team right there. Freshman team, I have my older kid. She's a college player, Oberlin, Ohio, but she's staying this semester. She's staying home doing online because of COVID-19, and she's not having her season. So she's helping out with the freshman kids. So they have somebody who is still playing. So it's really good for them to see somebody who is still playing, and great coach, somebody that was under my program, and she knows what she's supposed to do, what I want to see from those kids. But the kids itself, we have a lot of talent right there, and we actually have one freshman kid on varsity team and two of them on JV. So really good group of kids.
Let's talk a little bit about that freshman that has found her way onto the varsity squad. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
What do you like so far? Not the greatest transition to a question, but
we think that she's the future of Mohave. Like I said, I have 7 seniors on the team. Once they graduate, we need somebody who is gonna help that transition after losing so many seniors. And Sydney is awesome player, very, very smart volleyball player, great athlete. And we think with her and a couple of other girls on the team that are gonna be back next year, we're gonna try to make that transition a little easier.
Yeah, and it's got to be an easier transition for sure when you've got a player who plays at that high level at the varsity level as a freshman, and then when you start to stream in some of those other JV and freshman players as they make their ways up, it's kind of like almost an ambassador for your varsity program.
That's correct. That's the idea, and we're hoping it's going to work.
Well, it seems to be working to me because I like I said, we got a chance to see you guys play live, and your team, it looks very, very good. I think the 4A Grand Canyon region is going to be very close this year in terms of volleyball, and Mohave and Mingus are going to be two of the top teams that we definitely see this year, at least in my opinion. But Coach, specifically for you, this is Coach Zdenko Radic, or Coach Z as he likes to be called, and I'm going to refer to him as Coach Z. He is the girls volleyball coach here at at Mohave High School. Coach, what brought you to Mohave?
Well, I actually lived in Michigan from 1999 till 2008, and I got an offer to be a PE teacher at Mohave High School and coach boys soccer. So my first coaching, actually, I coached soccer and volleyball way before that, but here at Mohave, my first coaching job was boys soccer. I coached that for I believe 5 years, and then I coached a couple of years boys soccer and girls volleyball, and then I just switched to girls volleyball. My two girls, they play volleyball, so it kind of made a sense for me to focus more on volleyball.
Is soccer your first passion, or have you always been very passionate about volleyball?
It's a good question and hard one to answer. I grew up, I tell kids that I was born on the soccer field. Right across my house where I grew up in former Yugoslavia, there was a stadium, so I would be out there all the time and play soccer. And I'm 53, but I still kind of play soccer. I run like open gym off the season. When boys soccer season is over, I run open gym and with them and play indoor. It's a lot of fun. I love it. But volleyball, it's there too.
Yeah, and I got to say, you coach a really, really good team, Coach. You're doing some great things over at Mohave, and I'm excited to see where this program goes going forward. What have you learned so far from your first season as the head coach for the Mohave volleyball team that you know now? It's some new things that you may have learned along the way.
When I took the program over, we didn't have a lot of commitment. So I would say that's the biggest thing, that if you give girls opportunity, they're gonna take it. So we just had a volleyball season. The season is over, and that's it. But I started with open gym. I started with spring volleyball. I organized club, and I've been running club last 5-6 years. And I got the girls. I got them buying to that. I got them committed. And those girls are busy. They do play other sports too. But anytime, girls and parents, anytime I tell them, hey, we're going to do this too. I'm going to take you to Vegas. I'm going to take you to Phoenix. And it's not easy being in Bullhead. You have to travel everywhere. But those kids and parents are committed. And once you start going, it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Again, we're speaking with Coach Zdenko Radic of Mohave High School. He's the girls volleyball coach there. Their next game is at 6 p.m. Against Lee Williams. I forgot to write down the date, but they will be taking on Lee Williams on October 6th. There we are. On October 6th at 6 p.m. against Lee Williams. Coach, how are you feeling against Lee Williams?
Like you mentioned, the Grand Canyon region, I do believe is one of the toughest, so that anybody can beat anybody. So it's again, I expect it to be a great game on both sides. Obviously, I want my team to win, but we will see. I know for sure it's going to be a great game.
Well, Coach, really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck on the rest of the season. Coach, again, thank you.
Thank you, too.
Coach Zdenko Radic of Mohave High School, the girls volleyball coach, right here on Off the Bench. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. More sports are on the way.
Two things we can count on every year.
A new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Bench with Philip Catalfamo, myself. I am joined now by the athletic director for Prescott High School, Missy Townsend. Missy, thank you very much for coming onto the program.
Thank you, Philip. Excited.
Well, we're excited as well. We know fall sports season has been kicking off. So how are things going on the other side of the mountain?
Really well, actually. We're excited that they're even having a season. And, we've worked really hard this summer and this beginning of the school year to get to the point that we're at. It was a really good day, that first day that we had games happening on campus, and this it's just good to see kind of that start to feel like it's a little bit of normal, even though it's still very far from being normal.
Yeah, and you nailed it perfectly. It is definitely very far from being normal, but we are somewhat returning to similar-ish normalcy that we would see in the fall season. For you, how exciting was it to see kids back out there playing again?
It was awesome. I mean, we've had our kids participating in workouts and different things throughout the summer. We started early on in July where we phased in slowly and like a lot of the schools in our county did. But to see them in person competing was putting the uniforms on again and being in our facilities. That was huge. The one thing that you really feel like you're missing a little bit is you just don't have those student sections like you used to in the first phases that we're in right now. But other than that, it's been awesome watching these kids play and do what they love.
Yeah, it's got to be. And, you did mention the fans, which we will get to here in a little bit, but just the COVID restrictions in general. How have the programs at Prescott High School been able to maneuver the COVID-19 restrictions and continue to play under these new restrictions?
Yeah, it's been a lot of just really following all the guidelines and the modifications that have come out. We've worked really hard to train our coaching and our staff as well as our student athletes. All of those started this summer when we were doing health screenings. We still do health screenings and temperature checks before every practice. We're still doing extra cleaning measures with equipment and different things. Our student athletes and our coaches are all still required to wear masks when they're not doing full cardio, when they're not working out. So all those different levels, keeping the groups smaller, trying to keep them from gathering in large groups. Those are all the little things. Then it gets into even to more details when you start looking at sport by sport, the modifications and changes we've been making based off of those.
Yeah, and like you said, it's always great to see kids back out there playing. It seems like every official that I've talked to, every coach that I've talked to so far is just excited to finally get back to fall sports. And what's weird is at the beginning of the pandemic, we kind of had a feeling that maybe this would all be done by the fall. Everyone was like, it'll be dead in the summer. It'll just be something here in the beginning of the year. But it has dragged on, unfortunately. But of course, thanks to people like yourself and the people at the AIA and everyone here in the state and the county, we've been able to present present fall sports, not just football. There's other sports that get played, but mentioning football does transition nicely into my next question, which is the Prescott Badgers do start on the road this season tonight. They'll be starting their first game of the season, and then they get a chance to come back home next week. I mean, we know that the Prescott-Bradshaw rivalry is always a matchup to watch out for every year, but just in general, how nice is it seeing, even though it will be at a different capacity, which we will get to, just getting football back out there and just feeling like things are somewhat going to go back to normal at some point?
Yeah, I think the one thing that football specific is kind of different, or going to be different for us at least, is, none of these kids have been in the weight room since last winter. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see that on the football field. You're going to see a little bit of difference in as far as that strength as well as some of the other stuff. On the other hand, I've told my coaches that, they should be pretty football savvy because they've spent a lot of time talking football. They've spent a lot of time, discussing it, but they haven't had that time that they usually get really pounding away at weights and trying to get bigger and stronger and quicker, because those weight rooms weren't available, and we didn't open them like a lot of schools did. So that one's a little bit unique to football, but it is great. It's exciting. The one thing that's going to be a little weird, I think, for all fans this year, especially in our region, is that every school district is handling fans and the modifications different.
Right.
So some of the schools are doing 2 fans. Some of the schools, like Lee Williams tonight, are not allowing visiting fans at all, but they're allowing home fans. And that one has turned into, as you can imagine, as anyone can imagine, that's turned into quite the contention a little bit. A little bit of drama when you've got family members saying, wait a minute, how come they can go, but we can't go? And
right.
How is that fair for a team when their fans can be there, but the other teams can't? So it's trying to get people to recognize we are living in a crazy time, and everyone has to remember our priorities at this time are letting these kids have seasons, and we're accomplishing that.
And it does start with a lot of the parents and the players and officials, everybody following COVID-19 guidelines and making sure that we take the proper precautions to make sure that we don't stall or halt or completely end the fall sports season, because we still have winter and spring to get through, and we like to get through them. But speaking to that, as you mentioned, Lee Williams is allowing home fans but will not allow away fans. What is Prescott High School going to be doing regarding fans?
Yeah, so starting right now, we're in a 2 fans per athlete phase for home and away. We're hoping relatively soon, in the next week or 2, to start allowing up to 25% capacity, which will still allow us to social distance in our stadiums and in our gyms. 25% capacity until we are able to move past the not requiring the social distancing component.
Right.
I don't see how we can move past 25% capacity because of all the restrictions that we're under. But I'm hopeful because we'd love to see more people come. As you know, it's definitely COVID has hurt many of the athletic departments around the county because we rely very heavily on gate for our main source of revenue. Mm-hmm. So not being able to have fans is definitely been a struggle for sure. But we want to see the kids out there. We want to see the fans out there, but we still have to really strongly enforce the masks and the physical distancing, which has been and can be a little bit of a challenge with people.
And I know you definitely like to get up to that 25% capacity when Bradshaw starts to roll around later in the season. Big rivalry between the Bears and the Badgers, but we'll get there when we get there. It should be an exciting game as usual. 2 of the top teams in the 4A Grand Canyon region going at it. And of course now Prescott High School has to deal with Bob Young over at Bradshaw Mountain, as they had to deal with him here in Mingus. But regardless, there are a whole bunch of other great programs and other sports going on. Specifically, I wanted to talk about a sport that we don't see in the 4A Grand Canyon region, which is badminton. Prescott's badminton team is off to an incredible start this year. Can we talk a little bit about that program?
Yeah, they're an amazing program, and we love. And I tell the ADs in the Grand Canyon region all the time, hey, you should all have badminton because it's the best sport. It's you get great kids, good parents. It's fun to watch. It's actually a very exciting game to watch happen. If you've never been to a badminton match, you don't know what you're missing out on. But our badminton team has had a really strong tradition of being successful. Our coach, Bobby Yoder, has been at the head of the badminton program for this is her 6th year. And she just has a really strong program of girls, and they're young this year, but they're finding a lot of success. They've won all of their first 4 or 5 matches. Wow. They played in 1 invitational and finished 2nd behind a state ranked team from last year that won state. So they're definitely competing, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to talk to our producers here at Verde Valley TV and see if we can go down there and broadcast a couple badminton games for Prescott High School. But of course, we'll maybe get there, maybe not. But anyway, obviously, outside of badminton, there's also a few of the other, still AIA recognized, but some things that you don't necessarily think about. Esports is one of the AIA recognized sports that is held at Prescott High School. What other of these, I don't want to say non-traditional, but, usually think about baseball, softball, just sort of the other AIA sports that are offered there?
Yeah, so Prescott's the only high school in Northern Arizona that offers badminton and boys volleyball. I know that I know Bradshaw. I've talked with Clarinda over there. They're working on trying to add boys volleyball in the next year or so, which will be awesome to have some more Grand Canyon schools taking part in the county even
And
with
that
that.
rivalry.
Yeah, and boys volleyball, again, another one of those sports that like so much fun to watch. A lot of fun, a lot of athleticism. So it's nice. It's great to see more that sport grow. It's definitely growing in the state of Arizona. And it'd be fun to see it growing in northern Arizona and Yavapai County.
Yeah, I got an opportunity to broadcast a few men's volleyball games during my time at GCU. And I did notice behind you, you do have, and you can't see it if you're listening on the radio, but behind Miss Townsend is a UMKC Ruse banner. And I have to say, as a former Lope, I'm a little insulted, but I'm curious, did you graduate from UMKC?
I did. I played basketball there and got my degree there. So, yeah.
Very nice. Well, like I mentioned, I am a graduate of Grand Canyon University, so I'm a Lope. But
if it makes you feel any better, when I played there back in the late 90s, Grand Canyon was not part of our conference. So it's kind of neat to see it now because that connection to Arizona and getting to see games and stuff. But yeah, I wish that would have been the case when I was playing there. When I played there, we were part of the Mid-Continent Conference and played our games back in Buffalo, New York, and different places. We traveled extensively, so it would have been fun to come home back to Arizona.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have the little bit of a Western Athletic Conference collide here with you at UMKC and me over at GCU. But getting back to Prescott High School, just in general, you're starting to slowly see students come back to class. What has that been, the transition back to in-person learning after being away for so long?
It's been, as an educator, we're in the business because we care about kids and we want to help kids, and not getting to see them in person was really hard on us as educators, and it really meant the world when we came back into hybrid several weeks ago here at Prescott. The atmosphere, I mean, it really truly was. There's just nothing like being in-person learning is always going to trump, it always is. And we wish so much that we could get back to full in-person learning. We're not quite there yet, but the hybrid is at least the opportunity that we have to see kids, and interact with them. Having the halls be quiet, having teachers not be on campus, having students not be on campus when we're at work was the worst. You like that level of noise, you like that level of interaction with people, and we missed that when we didn't have it.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to get back to that at some point, or at least that's the hope that everybody has. It's a very obvious statement, but of course it rings true of, like you mentioned, just walking through the halls and there's not kids in there, or it's not a flooded campus with kids, and getting ready for the Friday night game, or going into your office to fill out sheets or forms, or there's not enough traffic there. But as you mentioned, hopefully at some point we will return to that. There was a question that I forgot to ask, but I want to ask now. There's a program that Prescott offers that I wish my high school offered, which is a student broadcast program. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Our broadcast media teacher, Robin Bryce, has done a phenomenal job with that class, and has actually built a brand new studio with the help of several community foundations like the Jewish Foundation, as well as a couple of other community members who donated a lot of money to help us get that lab open and running. But she also happens to be our esports coach. She's got a great personality, helps those kids, very tech savvy. And she has really, it kind of had started originally with our video scoreboards that we purchased several years ago, our ScoreVision scoreboards, and they're designed specifically to have students begin running them and to have them be broadcasting and to do the design work and to do all this stuff, the graphics, the videos, all those things. And so they're getting a ton of real life experience, and it's really fun to see that program grow and to see those kids. And like, I hire them to make videos for the athletic department and get them out. I wish they would broadcast like you are doing. I would love to see our kids do that at a little bit more consistent level where they're actually broadcasting games and stuff and not just streaming them. Right now they're working on streaming them, but they haven't added that component. You got to have the right personality like you, Philip, and have them be comfortable speaking, and not to mention the radio voice and video voice that you have that makes people want to listen to you. So but they're doing a really great job, and the program's really grown over the last several years. And anytime you can see kids getting real world experience, so that helps them when they move on out of high school, is amazing.
Well, I thank you very much for the kind words. And, it is nice to see high schools start to implement more programs like this to build that next group of broadcasters or directors or writers or videographic people. Regardless, it helps to build the passion that I have for this. And it's nice to see that it's starting to make its way into the high school realm. And like I said, it starts to build that future of next people hosting a show like this and speaking to you about all the wonderful things going on in Prescott. And before I let you go, is there anything else going on around campus as we begin starting to let kids back in?
Well, there's all kinds of things. Our student council, the key has been how do we help students feel like they're having a normal high school experience in this, pandemic environment that we're living in right now. And it's kind of exciting. I'm not going to give anything away, but our student council is working really hard to create events and an atmosphere here on campus where we'll have a homecoming week, hopefully the end of October, and planning a homecoming week when you're only half your students are on campus at a time, and you're not allowed to have a normal dance or a parade or a bonfire like we've normally done. We have a long tradition and history of doing those types of things. Our student council kids have been amazing at coming up with really creative, out-of-the-box thinking to help our students have an experience in this pandemic world we're all living in. Yeah,
and hopefully they'll be able to get all those great ideas off the ground and allow for some normalcy. Like you said, that's the big thing about returning to normalcy, whatever you can. But Ms. Townsend, I want to thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Prescott's a great high school. You guys are always very accommodating to us. It's really great to meet you, and hopefully we'll talk again later this year.
We'd love that. Thank you, Philip.
No problem. Off the Bench, we'll be right back. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll take a look ahead at next week. When we come back, don't go anywhere, right here on Off the Bench.
Two things we can count on every year:
a new set of tax rules and great weather here in northern Arizona.
Jackson Hewitt Tax Service, locally owned and operated by Lewis Rice since 1997, is here for you all year long.
Your neighborhood Jackson Hewitt Tax Office will help you in all of your taxing situations.
Electronic filing is always free with your tax preparation at Jackson Hewitt Tax Service.
Get more in return. Call 1-800-234-1040 for an office near you.
Want to welcome you back here to Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports on Verde Valley TV or KVNA FM 104.7 or AM 600. I'm your host, Philip Catalfamo. Want to thank my guests today, the AIA Executive Director, David Hines, for coming on and talking about the new guidelines for the fall sports season, the Mohave girls varsity volleyball coach, Coach Zdenko Radic. Like I said, he's got a wonderful story to tell and was a very, very nice man to talk to, and the Prescott Athletic Director, Missy Townsend. Very exciting things going on over at Prescott, and Missy was a wonderful interview. Hopefully those people will come back onto the show very, very soon. Some things to look forward to for next week. We will get a chance to see some more football, and then that's a good thing, of course. Flagstaff will go on the road to Prescott Valley to take on Bradshaw Mountain. Coconino will travel to Lee Williams, and Mohave will take on the Marauders in Cottonwood. That is your football matchups for next week. On Saturday, we have some volleyball for you. This Saturday, Cactus will take on Flagstaff High School. Lee Williams will travel all the way to Prescott to take on the Badgers. And Tuesday, Flagstaff Eagles will take on Coconino. And it seems like it's rivalry week in volleyball next week. week. Like I said, Flagstaff and Coconino. And, of course, the big rivalry, Prescott taking on Bradshaw Mountain. That game can be caught on Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Want to plug my Twitter? You can follow me on Twitter at Philip Catalfamo, PhilipCatalfamo. Feel free to tweet at me, comment on the show. Let me know who you want to see on the show. I'd be happy to talk to a whole bunch of other great athletes and athletic directors and executive directors or even more coaches on the show. So please feel free to reach out. Again, if you're a Marauders fan, we are having the voting for wide receivers for the all-decade Mingus team on VertiValleyTV.com or MyRadioPlace.com. So if you're a Marauder fan, go and check that out over there. And with that, again, my Twitter at Philip Catalfamo. Follow Verde Valley TV on Twitter and KVNA as well on Twitter. And with that, we will talk to you again next week. Should be a whole lot of fun. We've got a lot of great interviews in store, and we hope you join us as well. For Off the Bench, Northern Arizona Prep Sports, I'm Philip Catalfamo. I want to thank you for watching and listening on Verde Valley TV and KVNA 104.7 or AM 600. With that, I want to wish you a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you again next time.